Coming up on Special Report, election interference by a foreign adversary. New information released on Iranian hackers sending stolen Trump campaign information to the Biden campaign. Constitutional attorney Don Brown joins us to discuss.
And coming up, how a Silicon Valley tech entrepreneur went from raising millions for Obama to fighting back against the woke school board. She's live breaking down why she thinks the future is red.
And another Democrat has left the party to join the Republicans. Sean Thierry joins us to discuss why it was important for her to make this change. All of that, guys, there's so much more coming up right now on Special Report.
Happy Friday. We made it through another week of busy news as well. Welcome into Special Report. I'm Michelle Backus alongside Bo Davidson here, Tara Dahl, and Kaylin Dorr. Happy Friday, everyone. Let's get right into the show with the alarming news that Iranian hackers sent stolen Trump campaign information to Biden campaign staffers.
This is a major deal that the left is trying to act like never happened. So what are the legal ramifications? Let's bring in constitutional lawyer, author, and former JAG attorney, Don Brown. Don, thank you so much for joining us here on Special Friday. Well, we got to dig right into this, Don. Is this Iranian collusion with the Biden campaign?
Well, it certainly does appear to be. With the Harris campaign, I guess, is what we have now. Iran, first of all, has violated federal law, the Federal Computer Fraud and Abuse Act. They've hacked into the Trump campaign's computers, which is a violation of federal law, and it certainly puts the onus on not only the Harris campaign, but also a number of the campaign associates, such as the super PACs. If you use assistance from a foreign power that is of value under federal election law and the Federal Election Campaign Act. And I think the Trump campaign should put the Harris campaign on notice and any super PACs on notice that if you use any of this information, either directly or peripherally, that you also are in violation of federal law, and the Trump campaign should demand the Justice Department what good that will do to investigate and Congress to get on it immediately. It creates all kinds of super PAC supporting the Harris campaign, and it doesn't need to be covered up.
Russian collusion as well. I want to switch gears now to an issue that is not getting enough attention, but has massive impacts on many Americans, such as small business owners, farmers, and ranchers, and that is the unconstitutional Corporate Transparency Act. Senator Tommy Tuberville has been sounding the alarm on what this law means for small business.
The Corporate Transparency Act, or in as DC we call it, and we call it the swamp speak, the CTA Act. The CTA is to me, one of the worst examples of big government overreach that I've seen since I've gotten to Washington over 3.5 years ago. That's saying a whole lot since our country is $34 trillion in debt. The CTA was signed into law in 2021 as part of the fiscal year 2021 NDAA. Simply put, the Corporate Transparency Act is an outright attack in this country. This includes farmers, restaurants. The CTA specifically targets working Americans with an LLC, and failure to comply could put you in jail for up to 2 years per violation, plus slap on $10,000 per violation.
Well, for a reaction, I want to also bring in attorney Eric Hygas with the Texas Public Policy Foundation. Eric, thank you so much for joining Special Report.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
I want to start with you first and get your reaction, as most Americans are not aware of this law, but like you heard the senator say, this is impacting 32 million businesses. Can you break it down for us?
100-page bill. It was tucked in, and what it requires is for entities that are created under state law, think corporations, LLCs, or just entities that are formed to hold property. It requires them to divulge sensitive personal information to the federal government. The government's going to put this in a law enforcement database that they can query at any time. And they don't have to have a court order. The law allows foreign governments to be used by law enforcement, by national security agencies, and intelligence agencies for whatever purposes they deem necessary.
That's wild. I didn't know that about the foreign governments. That's insane. Individuals to disclose this personal data to the Treasury Department's financial crimes. Tuberville had to say about that as well.
Why does the federal government need this information in the first place? Well, the goal of the CTA was to crack down on shell companies used to commit crimes. That's what this was meant for. But the reality is, criminals, they're not going to file with CINFIN. That's not going to happen. Criminals don't go by the law. Instead, the law will be used to go after hardworking Americans. In recent years, we have lost over 150,000 farmers in this country. You heard that right. Just in the last few years, 150,000 farmers have gone out of business. Economy. It's not happening. They're not. The CTA is going to squeeze them for every last cent. It's just another way that this administration can use the federal government to go after conservatives and Christians. To add insult to injury, FinCEN has done little to nothing to educate Americans on the CTA and the harsh consequences if you don't comply. So they can punish them for not complying.
Amen, Coach. Don, he says this law will be used against hardworking Americans and not big businesses like BlackRock or Facebook or Amazon. Targeting the middle class? Like, what's the deal?
That's right. If you got an LLC or a C Corp or an S Corp with 20 employees or less, this law was passed during the last couple of weeks of the Trump administration. The president vetoed it. The Democrats in Congress overrode the veto, and it's going to create a ticking time bomb for small businesses effective January 1, 2025. And if you don't comply, not only is it a $10,000 criminal fine, 2 years in prison, but potentially a $500 a day. Hit Americans with that, and so we're going to have Americans getting big tax bills if this thing gets struck down. It is a great and absolute in-your-face violation of the Fourth Amendment. In my opinion, it is unconstitutional. But I'm warning all my clients: you better be ready, because they're going to come after you if this thing isn't shot down between now and the first of the year. And we're depending on the courts to do it because we don't have votes in Congress to strike it down between now and the next administration.
Eric, you're an attorney. What are your clients saying about this law, and are they aware of it? Deadlines are coming up soon. Some have already passed, correct? And only 10% of required submissions have complied. Reports are because businesses are just not aware of this?
Right. Again, this is going to affect 32 million businesses and entities in this country. And a lot of them are small entities that don't have the resources to hire lawyers to figure out all of these new requirements. And so this law is really going to affect. Smith is a property owner in Austin, Texas. She owns a second home on the same street that she lives on. And the federal government is now saying that it can regulate her rental company because it somehow affects interstate commerce. Don mentioned some of the other constitutional concerns around the Fourth Amendment, and those are serious concerns. We're bringing a challenge under the Commerce Clause. Again, we have a government of limited enumeration. On is the Commerce Clause. But if the federal government's theory of this case is right, they can regulate any activity, even though it goes on the same street in Austin, Texas. It's a entity that was formed under Texas law, yet the federal government says that they have the power to regulate our client's business because it was a entity formed under state law.
Well, John, in every state, there's a lot of lawsuits right now against this.
Well, corporations and LLCs are supposed to be a product of state law. There's not supposed to be federal registration. There's not supposed to be overreach by the federal government. Kudos to Eric for But if you've got a business you can afford to attack it, you should attack it. The problem is, as Eric pointed out earlier, that small businesses can't afford to do that. We have mom and pop businesses set up, and it's going to be a surprise to thousands and thousands of businesses. I think probably work its way up into the federal circuits and maybe even to SCOTUS before it's over with, and hopefully it's going to get shot down.
Yeah, let's really hope so. Gentlemen, thank you both so much for being here and providing such great insight.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, coming up, how a Silicon Valley former Obama fundraiser nonetheless said she's had enough of the woke. Up right after this.
Breaking news from the RAV family.
Flash back out of the chat with the most informed people in America. To get to the truth we needed, we first had to take out the garbage. Now that's breaking news.